Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning. So glad you could join us. I'm Tara Rodriguez, Director of the Division of School and Program Improvement at the Kentucky Department of Education. We have several presenters from KDE with us this morning. If you all would like to introduce yourselves.
I am David Melanti, the Assistant Director in the division.
Hi, I'm Brenda Considine. I am the Title I Branch Manager.
And I'm Erin Suddeth. I work with Title I and Title III programs.
Thanks again, everybody, for joining us this morning. I'm going to share with you my screen so we can start taking a look at the slides. Just a few logistics before we get started. First of all, if you have a question during the webinar, there will be an email that will come up on your screen here in just a few minutes. If you have a question, please send that to us and we will try to answer that during the webinar if possible. If not, somebody will follow up with you as soon as possible afterwards. The webinar will be recorded and will be posted on the Title I Documents and Resources webpage. In our June webinar, we provided you with some updates and reminders. We had a piece on allowable costs and allowability process. And we also had some parent and family engagement ideas and allowable expenditures. And we had a district that had shared some of their parent and family engagement tips and some of the things they were working on. So just a reminder, if any district has anything they would like to share, please feel free to reach out to us about that. That's one of our main requests that we have received, is that districts will present and share and so on, and we're all for that. If any brave district would like to step up and present during a webinar or share, if you got your newsletter yesterday, you'll see that we had a helpful tip from Elizabeth Town. So anybody else that would like to share something they're working on, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to hear about what's going well in your district. Today's agenda, Brenda and David will provide some information about the consolidated checklist in GMAP. And hopefully this will be some timely information for you as you're getting your school year started. There are some beginning of the year reminders. There are some required notifications that if you've been a Title I coordinator for a while, you probably already know about those. But for our new coordinators, this is a reminder, and we'll provide, Erin and I will talk about some reminders for you this morning. So Brenda, how about if we get started with you and tell us about what's going on in the world of GMAP?
Okay, thanks, Tara. I wanted to say good morning, coordinators, and welcome to our new coordinators. And of course, Tara just referenced the Title I newsletter that came out yesterday, and it did provide some resources in that newsletter. If you're a new coordinator, you may want to check out those resources that we have on our page. And it also talked about the application process and munis alignment. So please make sure you read through that newsletter. Also, technical assistance for GMAP webinar that we recorded earlier in June, if you have any GMAP questions while you're working on your application. We've also had a question that was posed from a previous webinar on providing an example of a good narrative that we would see in GMAP. And I kind of just wanted to touch base on that this morning. When providing a narrative in GMAP, you want to make sure that you answer the questions. If it's a question oriented, like district requirement section, you have the 4 questions. Just provide us details that would explain the plan's development or how you're coordinating with other programs. That's essential and for us to be able to understand what's happening at the district level. In the district set aside section, if you can give us some detailed descriptions in those required narratives like homeless, parent-family engagement, EL, even the substitutes for the Title I funded staff, we need those narratives to give us enough description and details that we can provide you some feedback. The consultant really wants to know what's happening at the district level with your Title I plan. So we're just all about improving student achievement, and getting that information to us is critical. So I wanted to touch base on that before we talked about the checklist. That checklist is essential in getting your application to approval. So if you haven't been in your checklist yet and you've submitted your application and you have the district superintendent approved, go to your sections tab, and at the very bottom, you will be able to click on your consolidated checklist. This is a means of communication between KDE and the district. And the consultant will be reading your application. They will be looking for allowability and allocability of the items that you've submitted in your funding application. And we're going to just touch base on some of these subsequent in these slides to ensure that your application has the items that's needed so that you're in compliance with all the Title I program requirements. So once your application has been submitted, KDE consultant will review that application and they will either mark it as okay, not applicable, or attention needed. If the application contains no items that are marked as attention needed, then you are good to go. You will not have that application returned for district edits. However, if there are items that are marked attention needed, the application is going to be returned to you at the district level with the status of not approved. Now, as you're reading through that checklist, you're going to look for the little check marks, and underneath, the consultant has provided feedback for you to help you with your revisions. And I think, Tara, we need to advance a little bit. Okay. So if you have checked items that are marked attention needed, those will need to be corrected. And sometimes it's just an additional explanation. Or it may be a little bit more needs to be added to the narrative. So each section that's marked attention needed will have notes. You will address those and look for those additional comments. So if we go to the next screen, I wanted to give you some screenshots from a district set-aside checklist. So here you see that it has been marked attention needed for 2 areas, for EL and for substitutes for Title I staff. And you notice the little checkbox have been marked. And then you look at the comments that the consultant has provided for those 2 areas. So for EL, they said this set aside requires a narrative. So districts must provide, or excuse me, may provide supplemental services or materials for EL students that are attending Title I schools only. Whether reserving funds from Title I or not, you must note that you are meeting parent notification and parent outreach requirements and note any funding sources being used. So in the narrative for EL, the district has not provided that information as of yet. So you need to go back, and the narrative should include a description of how parents are notified and how you're meeting those parent outreach requirements. And if you are using additional funding sources, please note those as well. For the substitutes for Title I staff, a lot of times districts forget to put any narrative in there because you're going to put 0. The district is going to pick up that tab, but you must include a narrative saying that the substitutes for sick leave and personal days for Title I staff is going to come from another funding source. And so make sure you include that. So I just wanted to give you a little what the checklist looks like with a comment section added. So once you have made your necessary adjustments, it's time, and your revisions are complete, it's time for that application to go back into the workflow process. You will have to have district superintendent approved, and it will come back to us. If KDE determines that that item has been corrected and that attention needed has been fixed, we will change it to okay, and then you will be finished. You will not have to do any additional work on that. However, if there's still some things that haven't been corrected or we still need a little bit more clarification, it's going to be returned back to the district with a not approved. Now, after you go through your checklist and you're reading the comments, before you decide to make any changes, reach out to your consultant because they're there to help you. They're there to provide you with technical assistance. They can talk you through those revisions because what we want to do is reduce the application going back and forth between the district and KDE and your consultant. So please reach out to them. They are more than willing to maybe even do a Teams meeting, a phone call, an email, whatever it takes, because we want to expedite this application process so that you can get your funding as soon as possible. So Tara, I hope this helps a little bit with the consolidated checklist and clear up some things that, because we're kind of in that stage right now. We're in the process of getting them reviewed back to the district and then our revisions. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're always there to help.
Thank you, Brenda. And if we have any questions, if anybody has a question over the information Brenda's presented, please send me an email and we'll see if we can get an answer for you during the webinar. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is, it's almost beginning of year. It's hard to believe. I know that probably all of you have been working hard all summer long to get prepared for this because of all the changes that have come about due to COVID. So we wanted to give you a few reminders, timely reminders about some required notifications that have to be sent for any district receiving Title I funds, which is all the districts in Kentucky. The first of these is outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act, Section 1112E1A. And it states that at the beginning of each school year, a local educational agency that receives funds under this part, which is Title I, that the parents may request, the district shall notify the parents of each student attending any school receiving funds under this part that the parents may request, and the agency will provide the parents on request and in a timely manner information regarding the professional qualifications of the student's classroom teachers. And I put the last slide in this slide deck has a link to the Every Student Succeeds Act, so you can go back and review these for yourselves because due to the size of the slide, it wasn't possible to put all the information in there. So it's a very good idea to go back and read that information for yourself. So I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit and just kind of tell you what some of those the notification has to include. And it has to include at a minimum whether the student's teacher has met state qualifications and licensing criteria, is teaching under emergency or other provisional status, and is teaching in the field of discipline of the certification of the teacher. There is a sample notification of the right to request teacher qualifications in our Title I Part A sample documents folder, which is posted on the documents and resources pages, and there's also links to that throughout the Title I handbook. And remember that when you send this notification, which is just that the notification basically says that parents have the right to request the certification. But when you do send those, then please make sure that you keep documentation of the notification, keep documentation of the notice, the date, and so on, other pertinent details in case of monitoring. And in the KDE Title I handbook, which is posted on the documents and resources page, you'll find some more information about these required notifications. For this particular one, we've suggested that districts could provide this information to parents through a general medium, such as a letter, or included in a parent handbook. So let's go to the next one because there is some additional information about this same notification. And this is found in the Every Student Succeeds Act, Section 1112E1B. Okay, and it says, in addition to the information that parents may request, the schools must communicate to each individual parent of these of the students, of each individual student, information on the level of achievement and academic growth of the student, if applicable and available, on each of the state academic assessments required under this part, and second, timely notice that the student has been assigned or has been taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who does not meet applicable state certification or licensure requirements at the grade level and subject area in which the teacher has been assigned. Okay, so again, a sample notification can be found on the Title I Part A sample documents folder linked on the slide. And again, don't forget to keep your documentation. All right, and here is another required notification, which is outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act, Section 1112E3. And this is on regarding our English learners, okay? And it says that each LEA using funds under Title I or Title III to provide a language instructional program shall provide the parents notifications not less than 30 days after the beginning of the school year, inform those parents, and then there's some bullets here of several bullets that include the information that have to be included in that notification. For example, I'm just going to paraphrase. So again, you would want to go back and look in the Every Student Succeeds Act to make sure that your notification includes all of the required information. So just briefly, some of the required information is, for example, the reasons for the identification of their child as an English learner and in need of placement in a language instruction educational program. So let's talk about what that is for just a minute. The child has been placed in a language instruction educational program. Sometimes you might see that abbreviated as an LIEP. Erin, can you tell us a little bit more about the LIEP, please?
Yeah, thanks, Tara. So an LIEP refers to the specific services that are being provided to the EL student, and civil rights law requires districts to provide all ELs with a language assistance program. Some examples of LIEPs that districts may be familiar with would be a newcomer program, sheltered English instruction, pull-out ESL, something like that. This is talking about your core EL program, which again is required under civil rights, and we can't pay with those civil rights requirements with federal funds. Any services that you provide with federal funds need to be supplemental to that core program. And you can find more information about the civil rights in the Dear Colleague letter issued jointly by USAID and Department of Justice, and that is linked on our KDE Title III Documents and Resources webpage.
Thanks, Erin. So in addition to that piece of information about the reasons for the identification of the student as an English learner and the need for the placement in the LIEP, some other required pieces, again, you should go back and read in the Every Student Succeeds Act to make sure that you have all these covered, but the child's level of English proficiency, the methods of instruction used in the program in which their child is or will be participating, how the program in which their child is or will be participating will meet the educational strengths and needs of their child, how such programs will specifically help their child learn English and meet age-appropriate academic achievement standards, the specific exit requirements of the program, and in the case of a child with a disability, how this program meets the objectives of the IEP, and information pertaining to parental rights that includes written guidance about things such as the right of the parent to withdraw the student or enroll in a different program. So those are some of the requirements for that letter. Erin, did you have anything else that you wanted to share about this particular notification? And if you would like to share your screen, I can stop presenting.
Okay. I'll show you where to find these requirements on our webpage. Okay, can you see the webpage?
Yes.
Okay, So this is our English Learner and Immigrant Resources webpage. And if you're on the Title I webpage, I'm sure districts are there a lot. You can get to us just over on the left-hand menu. It's laid out very similarly to the Title I resources page. And we have a lot of really useful resources for you here. That Dear Colleague letter I just mentioned is right here. What I wanted to show you is this district guide for the English Learners program. That's our version of a handbook. And we have a section, let's see, it's page 17 of the handbook, where we talk about the parent notification. So let me zoom in a bit for you. And there's all of those requirements that Tara just mentioned. A couple additional things about this parent notification. It must be a written letter, and it's sent each year. So whether it's a student who's brand new to the EL program or a student who is just continuing, they were already an EL last year, it still has to be sent to them. Now, KDE does not have a parent notification letter template. Some districts use programs or services like Elevation. Elevation has the ability to generate a parent notification letter, or maybe a company like Transact. They provide some different notification templates. And the one thing that we want to really make sure people pay attention to is something that we've encountered during our monitoring visits. So if you're using one of those templates, be sure that it contains all of the required information right here in this list. What we've run into is some districts who say they're using maybe a Transact template and they've had it for years. If you look at the bottom, it'll usually say the year. We found them from 2008, 2012. Those are all pre-ESSA and do not have all of the required information. So you just want to be aware and make sure that you are meeting these requirements. Now, if you're looking at this requirement list, once you include all of that in a letter, it can be kind of a lengthy and complex letter. So what a lot of districts opt to do is they discuss these items in person at the annual Program Services Plan or PSP meeting for the EL student. So what we suggest in that situation would be you still must send this notification letter to the parents, and you can say, please come to the program services meeting on this date. We will be discussing the following, and then list these items. So that way it's a little easier to read and maybe less overwhelming for the parents. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Let's go back and see if it will take us back to the correct slide or if it's going to start all over again. Oh, it starts all over. Okay. So there is also a special rule which has to do with the same another English language notification. And there it is. I think I just passed it. The special rule. Okay. And it basically says that for those children who have been identified as, let me get to the right place, who have been identified as English learners prior to the beginning of the school year, but are identified as English learners during such school year, who have not been identified prior, but were identified during the school year, the LEA shall notify the children's parents during the first 2 weeks of the child being placed in the language instruction educational program. And then it also says that the notice and the information has to be provided in a format and in language that is understandable and accessible to parents to the extent possible. And so, Erin, what additional suggestions and information can you help us with on this special rule?
All right. Sometimes we get the question about that 2 weeks, and it is 14 calendar days, not like 14 school days or anything like that. The other thing I would remind districts of is this E4 section about the putting things in a language that parents can understand. This is a civil rights requirement. Districts and schools must ensure meaningful communication with parents who maybe have limited English proficiency, which could be the parents of your English learner students, or it could be parents of students who are proficient in English. That's important to remember as well. Any information that is provided to parents in English must be provided to those parents with limited English proficiency in a language that they can understand. So that might mean having documents translated. Some situations you may need an interpreter to come in and explain the document to parents, or use like a phone interpreting service. The thing to remember with interpreters, translation tools, you want to make sure that those are qualified to provide that information. That's a big issue that we see a lot. And I think that's all I have on this slide.
Okay, so you're saying that the interpreter needs to be a qualified interpreter.
Yes, not necessarily certified. You can get a
Right.
certified interpreter, and some districts may choose to require that on their own. What you want to make sure, there's several things. Never use students to interpret. Now, if we've had questions, what if a kid falls on the playground and we need to call mom quick? That's fine. We're talking about parent conferences, documents. You don't put the children in that position. You want to hesitate against letting the family just bring their own person. You know, this is my sister and she's going to interpret for me. You need to make sure that that person is capable of interpreting all of the information that you're going to share, which could be some information, you know, where you need an educational background, some of the terminology. You also need to make sure that they understand the ethics of interpreting, that they should not be sharing this information outside of the parent conference, for example. So that's just, it's the district's responsibility to do that.
Yeah, and I can see right here, and you may have said this earlier, but there's a really important for the Title I coordinator to communicate and collaborate and stay in really good communication with the English learner Title III person at the district as well. I can see that would be important and helpful too.
Absolutely. And these requirements, they aren't new. They just moved from Title III to Title I when Every Student Succeeds Act was enacted. So these should be things that your district has been doing for a long time. They just might be a little bit new to Title I coordinators.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Erin. That's very helpful information. And so the last thing I believe, and unless we have any other reminders that have come up, we can certainly entertain those. But the last thing is I provided a, oops. Okay, I don't know what happened here, but some resources for you. There's one here. Of course, I mentioned that we would have the Every Student Succeeds Act. That's the second link. But also, when we were at a meeting last week, the Federal Department of Education let us know that this learning module for parents is available. It's a new module from the IRIS Center. If you've ever used any of the IRIS Center resources, this one is in a very similar format. I might, if I can, I might just take just a minute to show you what that is. I have it pulled up if I can find it. And if not, we will just not worry about it. But the module is actually for parents, and it starts out very similar to the way that the other modules do. There's kind of an overview. I'm not seeing it here on my possible list of things I could share. So I'll just tell you about it. It starts out with some background information. It tries to get parents to start thinking about learning and what challenges they're experiencing. And I wanted to share that link with you because I know that a lot of, I've heard some districts saying that some parents have had some challenges and some questions about the online learning. So that may be a resource that you're interested in. Again, there are lots of links throughout the presentation, and you have lots of people resources at the department that can help. Erin, of course, and Jessica Sanderson, who both work with English learners, and then the other people on this call, and as well as your Title I consultants are available every day to help you with any questions that may come up. So Brenda, David, Aaron, do you have anything else that you want to let everybody know about?
I did think of one additional thing, Tara. I think I forgot to mention this. The requirements that we went over for the English learner students, these are district level requirements. So this applies to all English learner students in the district, not just the ones at Title I served schools. That's very important.
Yes, very important. Thank you for that clarification. All right, if there is nothing else, then we will conclude our July webinar. I'm wishing you the very best start to your school year and hope that you will be able to join us next month for our August webinar. See you then.